Good morning. Let's welcome our host, Trish Trish Reposo. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Good morning. I'm Trish Raposa, and I am thrilled to be your host for is designed to convene global innovators and prominent startup leaders to explore the future of Southeast Asia's rapidly evolving tech landscape. This significant summit serves as a platform for discussion technology, and entrepreneurship. By fostering collaboration and knowledge exchange, sustainable growth and remain at the forefront of global innovation. So grab your seat, grab some coffee, and connect with fellow innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech enthusiasts. Today is all about unlocking the future of Southeast Asia's rapidly evolving Philippine Council for Industry, Energy, and Emerging Technology and Research and Development has been instrumental in empowering Filipino startups through strategic initiatives and supportive programs. Please welcome Director Enrico Paringit.
A great party. Sorry to have Philippine Startup Week, a grueling but a very exciting week for all of us. Of course, that just started. We also have a special lane for women entrepreneurs and women founders, and we call this the WHY's program. It stands for the Women Helping Women Innovating Social Enterprises. This is actually engagement, the community, as an essential component in moving about your own women-led enterprise. Of course, some of the activities that we have, in fact, in this program would not have been possible without, of course, our technology business incubators. And we have now to date, ilan na to? 90 plus din? Coincidence ba? Eight. Which is funding the establishment and operations of the TBI. We also have our higher education institution readiness for innovation and entrepreneurship, or the HIRIT program, which is really like a preparatory program in order for you to be prepared to establish your own TBIs. The TBIs are, by the way, distributed in most parts of the country, mostly in universities. Of course, you have the likes of Kubo. I was referring it yesterday as the as the mother figure maybe of the startups, no? Of the TBIs as well, continuing not only to guide the startups but also acting as a mentor for other TBIs all over the country. And then a way to organize all of the activities of the TBI, especially on a regional context. Role in supporting the startup ecosystems here in Metro Manila, and we have similar setup or phase in the provinces. So we recognize the unique challenges of startups for each program is tailored to we'll just probably have to go through it. Pero I think the good news is that we're continuously supporting. Sabi ko nga, wala ako bukas. I'm not here tomorrow because I will be, slugging it out in the Senate. Hopefully, we will get the budget that we need. Did you know already that out of the total funding that we get as a council, over a third of that already is devoted to the innovation phase of the science and technology initiatives, going beyond R&D. That's what I mean. So you really now, palakpakan naman dyan. So, di ba? Kasi before, it doesn't have really get us a big piece of the pie. But now really it's getting more attention. It's also coming out of the fact that we need to also support those good outputs coming from the R&D, whether they're student projects, the projects of your faculty members, or something that you were, inspired to do beyond the confines of the academe. So we need to have that kind of support as well. That's why the fiscal makeup of the funding that we have is an expression of the policy that we have towards making sure that the startup community and the innovation ecosystem is continuously supported. So let me end by saying that, of course, this is an expression of our firm resolve to support the innovation ecosystem to propel our nation's progress. And the celebration of this Philippine Startup Week brings together another milestone. This is not just, I think, another event, but a reaffirmation of our firm belief that you guys hold the future for this country. And we have a lot of expectations. We have a lot of hope pinned on you to make these things happen. I always say that you don't really have to remember all of the fancy acronyms that we use to refer to our programs. But please do approach us. Please do talk to us. Please do have some conversations with us so we can find the best opportunity for you to engage and be supported. So let us remember that each of us carries a spark of innovation, courage, and unwavering determination to set the country's course for the future. Again, congratulations to us attending this event, and may we have a very successful Philippine Startup Week ahead. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Director Parinit, for those powerful words on how technology and innovation will shape our future. Our next speaker is a prominent advocate for entrepreneurship and local innovation. As president of Scale NCR, she plays a vital role in nurturing the Philippine startup ecosystem, providing crucial resources, mentorship, and support to startups across various stages of growth. Let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Maria Cristina Ibanez.
Okay, hello. Good morning, everyone. So, good morning. I welcome you to the day 2 of the Philippine Startup Week 2024. We're incredibly excited to have you all here as we continue this week-long journey celebrating and fostering innovation across the Philippine startup ecosystem. So since yesterday, we have been having a lot of activities, not only here in Blue Leaf, but across the country. Today's theme, Day 2, Tech Renaissance, sets the stage for a deep dive
Thank you, Ms. Ibanez, for your inspiring message on the importance of building a strong community of startups and innovators. And finally, our next speaker is a well-known leader in the Philippine startup community and a passionate supporter of Filipino entrepreneurs. As president of Ideas Space Foundation and Kubo Innovation, he has been a champion for innovation, providing invaluable guidance and resources to early-stage startups, helping them thrive in a competitive market. Let us all welcome Mr. Rene Butch Mailey.
When I was young, and that was a long time ago, Southeast Asia was a pretty sleepy place. Hong Kong was a British colony. Singapore was also a British colony. It only achieved its independence in 1957. In 1965. Malaysia was also a British colony. It achieved its independence in 1957. Vietnam was embroiled in a war that seemed like it would never end. And it created unrest all over the world, including here in the Philippines. And yet, when you look at it now, this whole region has been transformed. You wouldn't recognize it. It's become a powerhouse. It's got a huge population, almost 800 million within a few years. It's got a rising middle class with so many ambitions and so many desires. That's estimated to reach 400 million within a few years. It's got a huge digital economy. One of the largest in the world. It's estimated to reach $100 billion by next year. One of the bright spots there is the Philippines. We're getting a lot of government support. I want to thank DOST Shared, DTI, and DICT. There were two landmark laws which were passed in 2019. And I always get them confused, so I won't name them here. But the Philippine Innovative Startup Act and the other one is called Innovation Startup Act. But they both amount to the same thing. They increase the incentives to invest in local startups, and they create a startup fund. At the last reports, 500 million pesos, administered by the National Development Corporation, which they have to invest every year. And it is replenished every year. So it's there, it's available, they have to use it. So make use of that. The thing that's most important, I think, about the Philippines, and that's where Kubo and Idea Space and the Scale NCR comes in, is that we've got a strong partnership between the private sector and the government. We can't do it without it. They've provided funding, they've provided support. Kubo gets free space from DTI. I invite you to visit it. It's on the first floor of the DTI building on Jupiter Street. Free space, free coffee for any startups, free Wi-Fi. So be my guest. Just sign up. And this afternoon, Idea Space, which is the accelerator of the Metro Pacific and PLDT group of companies, we're hosting our 12th cohort of startups. And at 4 o'clock today on this very stage. And this group is different. They're more mature, they have revenues, and we have returned to our roots. We're taking an equity stake. We're investing in each of these startups this afternoon because we believe in it, and we believe that we have to have skin in the game if we're going to make this work. So please join us. Philippine Startup Week is one of the proofs of that partnership. It's the biggest event of the year. Thousands of people, and I can see there are thousands here this morning, both here and in the other hall. But they all come here from around the country and the world. There are more than 50 community events in different places around the country, in different schools, in all kinds of cities all over. Many people are headed for Cebu, for Geeks on the Beach. If you haven't signed up, I encourage you to go there. It's a lot of fun. I've seen people jump into their jacuzzis with all their clothes on. It's fun watching them do that, or you can do that yourself too. But I encourage you to go because there are a lot of deals there. I'd like to thank the people who organized Philippine Startup Week. They've been working so hard. I'd like to thank Scale NCR. I'd like to thank the 3 government agencies, DOST, DTI, and DICT. And most of all, I'd like to thank the Idea Space Cubo team, especially Dave Del Rosario, because they really, yeah, let's give them a hand. Let's give them a hand. They have not been sleeping for the last few days. We've got Airbnb where they're all bunked out, and I see their messages. I get really tired of them. All hours of the night keeps me up, and then early in the morning they're up again. So I hope they make it to the end of this week. So I want to thank them for their hard work and for making this event a reality. One of my favorite sayings, believe it or not, comes from the scriptures, is that men do not light a lamp to hide it under a basket. They set it up high up in the house so that it can give light to everyone in that house. And to me, Philippine Startup Week is like that lamp. We want to hold it on high so that everyone in the country, young people and not so young people like me, can get inspired and start their own business and realize that they don't have to go abroad. They don't have to work for a big company in order to do well. They can start their own company and create wealth. We want you to succeed. We want you to make money for yourselves, for your families, for your employees, for the country. Because if one of you succeeds, we all succeed. So let's raise that lamp for all the world to see. And thank you for being here on this Tuesday morning. We have many more events to come, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you again, Mr. Maley, for those encouraging insights. And again, a big thank you to our esteemed leaders for those inspiring words. Your insights set an empowering tone for today's pivotal summit. Now let's dive into the exciting program we have lined up. Starting us off is a keynote on launching a successful startup in today's competitive landscape. As you know, success in this arena requires more than just a great idea. It demands strategic planning, adaptability, and a strong grasp of market dynamics. Our keynote speaker, Rajiv Iyengar, CEO of Product Hunt, has invaluable insights from his journey in the tech world. With experience in founding and leading companies, Rajiv is here to share critical steps to a successful startup launch. Let's all welcome Rajiv.
Hey, everyone. All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. I'm Rajiv. I'm the CEO of Product Hunt, which is a daily leaderboard for new startups launching. There are 30 to 40 startups launching every day. Figma, Notion, Airtable, Reddit, all launched on Product Hunt. But before that, I founded Tandem, which is a virtual office for remote teams. And it was 5 years of my life. It was quite a roller coaster. And that's a story I'm going to tell today. It's a very personal story. It's not a successful one. We didn't make it, but I think there can be a lot to be learned from the twists and turns of the startup journey. So I'm going to tell that story. Yeah. Whoops. One concept I'm going to come back to again and again is a vantage point. So show of hands, how many of you have read the blog post on the idea maze? Idea maze, anybody? Yeah, a couple? Yeah. I would encourage you all to read Chris Dixon's blog post on the idea maze, which is a metaphor for startups. You know, startups aren't a race. There are lots of twists and turns. And I think it's best thought of as a maze. A concept on top of that that I think about a lot is a vantage point. It's like, what can you do to get to a point? Maybe it's a metric you need to go up. Maybe it's a launch. A launch is often a vantage point. What can you do to get to a place where the world looks different and you can assess and pick a new direction? So I'll come back to this again and again as I describe the twists and turns. So, a bit about myself. I grew up in the Bay Area in California, right in Silicon Valley, right on Sand Hill Road, where all the VCs are. My dad's Indian, my mom's Filipino. I was born in Menlo Park, got a Banatao scholarship, and I've had a pretty nonlinear career. I studied bioengineering, and then I worked for Fairchild in Cebu, actually, for a bit as a project manager. I did data science, I did product management. In a way, maybe I started a company because I wasn't successful at anything else. But I think the twists and turns prepared me well for startups. So this is the start of the story. 2017, I had two great friends. We worked together at Yahoo. And there are many reasons to start a company, but for me, it was friends. I wanted to work with these two friends. We had some ideas, but we didn't really know what we were going to build eventually. We just wanted to work together, which is, I think, a strong way to start because we changed ideas a lot. I'm going to take you through a few big pivots and until we started working on the problem of remote work. And then I'm going to take you through actually the quick product iterations we did to get to the app that we launched. December 2017, we weren't working full time, but we launched Cryptagon, which was a way to track your Web3 portfolio. We launched it on Product Hunt, which is the company I'm running now. And it's free. You just put it on the site, and overnight, thousands of people started using our app. And we had people making requests of us. We had people telling us things were broken. We had people offering to help us build the app. And there was over $100 million of cryptocurrency tracked, like actually overnight. And this gave us the confidence to jump in full time and say like, hey, maybe there's something here. So we did. We jumped in full time. We started a company. We raised a small pre-seed round. And this took us several months, but we realized at some point growth stalled, crypto had fallen, and we realized we needed to make a decision. We weren't growing. We couldn't figure out how to grow. And as we looked around and talked to a bunch of our users, we're doing user interviews every day, we realized that the users didn't want the advanced trading features we were building. They just wanted a quick way to make money. And they wouldn't pay for it either. And we asked ourselves a few questions. We asked ourselves these questions at every vantage point. Like, how do we grow? How do we make money? Do people actually want this? And as we started talking to users, we realized there were kind of two things. There's one thing people would pay for, which was help on taxes. And there's another thing we could make money on, which was ads. And we didn't feel comfortable doing ads at the time because there were a lot of sort of sketchy ICOs. And we didn't feel like we were the right team for taxes either. So we decided to do a hard pivot. We talked to our users, same user, but we went for a deeper pain point, and we decided to build for their personal finances. So we launched in April 2018, with soft launch to friends, Polygon, which is a pocket financial advisor. It was based on the idea that we could give you clarity on your personal finances in a low-stress way. This was a short-lived pivot. We spent about 2 months on this app. We got people to use it, and we ran into a bunch of blockers. We couldn't figure out how to make money. We had really poor retention. Nobody actually used the app, which really started making us ask, like, do people want this? And we couldn't change behavior. We couldn't get our users to do anything positive for their finances. And we also realized all of the different ways we were thinking about monetizing required a deep knowledge of financial technology. None of us had that background. We'd all been building consumer apps at Yahoo. So sometimes you just got to realize, like, you're not the founders before this. And we did another hard pivot. This is the last pivot before we started working on remote work. And this was a really interesting one. We launched a crypto exchange, a very particular type of exchange for hedge funds. We discovered this need in talking with a bunch of professional traders who had used our first app. And this is the first pivot where we decided to intentionally aim for a vantage point. So for an exchange like this, which is an exchange for hedge funds, the vantage point was pretty clear. We had to launch it. We had to do a day of actual exchange volume. So it took 4 days to build this exchange. It took 2 months to sign up about 20 of the largest hedge funds. And then one day, we launched it. And we immediately found it wasn't going to work. We were about 100 times below the scale for any sort of liquidity. So we did a hard pivot. And, you know, I think this is I think one thing interesting in hindsight is we didn't really persevere on this idea because we didn't feel it personally. We were building it for an archetype of a user that we'd come across. It was a market inefficiency we saw, but we didn't strongly believe that this type of exchange needed to exist in the world. Again, that goes into founder market fit. What we pivoted to, though, was very personal. So these are my co-founders' kids. I have 2 co-founders. They each had a baby like within 6 months of each other. This was in 2018. This is before the pandemic. We were working in person every single day. And then all of a sudden, they're at home with the kids, and we started working remotely. And we didn't feel like a team anymore. We were, it was hard to talk. We didn't have that creativity, that energy of being in the same room. And if you remember, like, we started the company to work together more than for an idea. And we didn't feel like that team. So we started thinking about this, and we started we used every tool out there. And eventually we started thinking about, well, how could we solve this problem? Because this feels really personal. And if we solve it, we'll be better. So we started working on how to create connection and collaboration in remote work. The first thing we did was test a really quick prototype. We didn't do any code. We just used Discord. So how many of you use Discord for gaming? Yeah? Cool. Yeah, so the idea was like, hey, can we replicate the type of interaction that you have with your friends on Discord, but for work? And so our first product, we called it Roundtable. Step 1 of installing Roundtable is to install Discord. Step 2 is you configure it in a specific way. And we got a few companies to use Discord for work. And we learned a couple of things. We learned that the quick, spontaneous calls were really valuable, but Discord is really confusing for if you're not used to it. It's not built for work. So we started building. The first attempt of this was, and at this point, we're building basically a new app version every 2 weeks. We'd build the app 1 week, and then we'd test it with a bunch of companies in our network for the next week, and then come to a conclusion. So, it was probably about a week to test what we called Roundtable, the Discord solution. And then we built a minimalist walkie-talkie. It's an app that sat on your desktop, you click, you talk. We got a few companies to try it out, and we learned pretty quickly that nobody's free to talk. And if you try to call somebody and they don't pick up a few times, you quickly stop calling them. So we thought, okay, people aren't online at the same time. Maybe we can bridge the gap between synchronous and asynchronous. So we created an answering machine. The way this worked is you can click to talk, and it's also simultaneously recording. So if the other person answers, they can talk to you, but if they don't, it leaves a voice message. In our heads, this was amazing. It's like this bridges synchronous and asynchronous communication. You don't need to care whether somebody's online before you talk. Then we tested it with actual users, and they hated it. They absolutely hated it. People hated voice messages. Voice messages are kind of long and rambly. And here's the weird thing. When you are leaving a voice message and somebody interrupts you and talks back, it's like scary. It's jarring. It's like, oh, I thought I was leaving a voice message. So we started, as we were talking to all of our users, we realized like, oh, yeah, People really do hate this. And also, they don't want to do asynchronous calls. They can already do asynchronous with Slack and other messaging apps. What they really want is to talk in real time. So how do we enable that? So we switched tactics. We said, hey, if the problem is availability, what if video calls were embedded into your workspace? Then you have to be available. So we thought about like, what are the tools that you spend time in? There's code, there's design software like Figma, there's spreadsheets, and there are documents. These are the things we spend a lot of time in. What can we reasonably build? Well, we could build a document editor. So this is probably the craziest pivot. We built an entire document editor. It was optimized for real time. It kind of looked like Figma. It had shared cursors, and there's voice and video attached. So if you're working in this document editor, you are available to be called. It's kind of a brute force solution. And we learned from the few teams that used it, they really liked it, but only some of the things. And it worked for not at all the reasons we thought. As we're talking to everybody, it's like, why are you using this? We see you using it. What actually is valuable? And we learned that it was about presence. If I see that you're in a brainstorm document right now, that you're viewing it, I kind of know you're available to talk. And so we extended that presence to what app you're in. If you're in VS Code, if you're in Terminal, if you're in Google Docs, if you're in Slack, that can help tell your teammates whether you're free to talk. It's kind of like Discord, but instead of games, like what game your friend is playing, we show what work app you're in. So this was what became Tandem. It's a desktop app where you can see who's around, you can see what app they're working in, and you can talk in one click. And this is what we, how many of you know about Y Combinator, the accelerator? Okay, we've got, so this is what we got into Y Combinator with. It was like a 2-week-old prototype. It was barely working, honestly. The screen share was barely working, but they found something compelling. So we start this accelerator. And the thing about Y Combinator is, I mean, I think the main thing I took away from Y Combinator is speed, like how to ship fast. And it looks different for every app, but there's one conversation that really stands out to me. So this is Gustav Alstromer. He created the growth team at Airbnb. He was our lead partner at Airbnb. And there was one conversation that just like changed the course of the company. It was a couple weeks into YC. We are talking with Gustav and we say, hey, here's our plan. We have to build like a self-serve flow. We have to make it more reliable. We have to build a few table stakes features like remote control screen share that users are asking for. And then in a couple of weeks, we plan to launch to Y Combinator, like within the accelerator. And then in a month or so, we plan to launch publicly on Product Hunt. And he said, you should launch to Y Combinator today. You should launch to everybody today. And you should launch on Product Hunt on Thursday. And we just said, we had so many excuses. We're like, we can't do this. Like the product doesn't work. Like people are complaining left and right. We've got like 5 teams using this and nobody's happy. And we have so many things to build. We can't launch that soon. And he just like listened to us patiently as we explained all the reasons why we couldn't launch. And he said, you need to know whether people want this more than you need to know whether you can build it. You know you can build it, but you need to know whether people want this. So we launched to Y Combinator like the next day, and it didn't go well. It really didn't go well. People were confused by how we were describing it. We were saying like real-time communication for remote teams. We had a Chrome extension that did this thing with collaborative cursors. People had to install an app and a Chrome extension. It did not go well, but we got a dozen teams to use it, and I harassed them until they got on the phone with me. Like I looked at their phone numbers, and I talked with every single one of them, and we heard something really, really clear. The valuable thing was talking in one click. The Chrome extension with the cursors, nobody found it valuable. We cut that entire part of our app out and simplified the value prop. And everything improved. Like the activation rate went up 4 times. You know, when you have to install 2 apps, there's a lot of friction. 1 app is a lot cleaner. And then we launched on Product Hunt. And we had a very, like a honed tagline at this point, a virtual office for remote teams where you can see who's around and talk in 1 click. And that did really well. We were product of the day. If anybody, how many of you have launched on Product Hunt? Okay. I want to see more people launching on Product Hunt out of the Philippines. But product of the day is really competitive. We were #1 of the day, and the traction spilled over into Twitter, LinkedIn. We were just going completely viral. Like the graph was vertical. Teams were signing up like many teams a day. People started tweeting about us. Like this is the Stripe founder talking about how cool Tandem was. I found out about this when my co-founder said the app was breaking. Like, oh, the app's breaking, we're overloaded. Like, what happened? And it turns out it was a tweet. This led to, oh wow, there's something going on with the images, sorry. This led to like a pretty crazy fundraise. So in 10 days, we went from pretty unknown founders to raising $7.5 million in seed funding from Andreessen Horowitz. Cool. Which is a pretty crazy seed, you know, especially back then. And it's all because, you know, of the launch. You know, the launch just resonated so much. Things got pretty weird. People gave us gifts. People gave us a tandem bicycle. And the thing with hot rounds is like, hot funding rounds don't mean your product is successful. They mean you have like investor market fit, and they're stressful in their own way. So, you know, my dad's a startup founder, and when we closed the round, he told me, like, now the work begins. And he was right. Like the product, a lot of people were signing up for it, but it was really rough. Like it didn't really work. There was a really high churn, really poor retention. And then the pandemic hit. We had just started to hire, had 1 engineer, my co-founder, and this is a 30-day chart when the pandemic hit. We just completely exploded. There were single days when we doubled in volume. So much so that Paul Graham tweeted about us. He said, he saw a graph of a startup used for remote work. I was surprised to find out the scale was days. How many of you have found product market fit? Like felt like you've really seen product market fit? It's somebody described it as being punched in the face. That's what this felt like. It was like almost the worst, most stressful time of my life. Like we were not sleeping. The app was breaking like every few days. There was one night when I remember my co-founder said all of Italy just came, just started quarantining and started trying to use Tandem. It was just absolutely insane. People were angry at us because the app wasn't working. This was like a very clear vantage point. Because at the same time, like while a lot of people were signing up, people weren't sticking. So this was our graph. The spike is the pandemic. And then even though many people were signing up, we were starting to decline. So we took stock of the situation. We have tons of organic inbound. Everybody's finding out through their friends about Tandem, but the product doesn't deliver. So this was an easy decision. It's time to build. So as quickly as we could, we built a world-class product team. We had the guy who built FaceTime, people with decades of experience from Discord and Skype and Twilio, and we started grinding. We built some new delightful interactions. We figured out how to enable spontaneous communication. The high five, I think, was our user's favorite feature. And we made it sticky. We made it work as promised. And we started growing again. And then something crazy happened. People stopped coming in the door. People stopped looking for this solution. This is a graph of overall video call minutes over the course of the pandemic. So you notice the initial spike is when everything went online. We all started talking. And then notice it starts dropping to about 1/3 of that. This is Zoom fatigue, or video burnout. And it was real, and we felt it. Everybody in the video space felt it. And all of a sudden, we looked around and nobody wanted to use video anymore. So this was like a realization. We realized the product works, people love it. We aren't churning users anymore, but nobody's signing up. All of our growth experiments failed. So in talking with people, we started looking around again, and we found like the thing that was happening was people were coming back to the office, and they needed something to bridge the gap between in-person and remote. So we were running low on money at this point. We had a last-ditch pivot, and we threw everything into it. We built a solution that lets remote people teleport around the office. It's kind of crazy. It involved hardware in the office and screens, and this is what it looks like from a remote person's point of view. And it really did work. You'd forget who was in the office and who was remote, but it was really expensive to set up. And this launch was interesting in that it was the most unsuccessful successful launch I've ever done. TechCrunch picked it up. It did really well on Product Hunt. People loved the vision. And despite all of that, we got 2 signups. Two companies actually installed this. So that was a very clear vantage point of, while the problem is resonating, this product is not something anybody wants. So just wrapping up quickly, this is the outcome. The pivot failed. We ended up rejecting the acqui-hire offers in favor of letting our team do what they wanted to do. And we actually kept Tandem independent. We shut down the company proper, but 2 of our engineers had the idea to keep it around as a side project, so we just gave them the company. And Tandem's still used by a couple hundred companies. It's kind of an unusual end, but not a bad one. If I were to reflect on, I still ask myself why Tandem didn't work. I still think it's a huge problem, and I'm still hoping somebody solves it. So if you're working on remote work, come talk to me. I want to help. On reflection, I think there were a few factors. Slack huddles really squeezed us. They were looking at Tandem in the early days, and they built a really, really clever product. There was also video fatigue, as we talked about, and return to office. But I think the deeper reflection comes down to like how I want the world to work versus what people actually want. And this is like a hard lesson for me that I'm still processing. I would like the world to really value real-time collaboration and work closely with each other and form deep connections at work. People want that, but also I've realized, like, when you're working remotely, it's nice to be able to take a moment and close your laptop and walk the dog. It's not that autonomy is so valuable to people. So that's something that's hard to overcome. But the story isn't over. There are a few virtual offices that are still going. We created this category, but there are a lot who are pursuing this in really, really inventive ways. There's Rome on the left. On the bottom left, there's Gather Town. And then Tonari is a really interesting company. It's a Japanese company that creates portals between offices where you can make eye contact. So it's not over yet, and I'm hopeful. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rajiv, for sharing your story with us. Now we'd like to ask you to please stay on stage for a fireside chat focused on redefining product experience. Rajiv? Joining Rajiv on stage is Paulo Campos, founding managing general partner of Kaya Founders. Paulo is a visionary entrepreneur who co-founded Zalora Philippines, one of the country's top e-commerce platforms, and now leads Kaya Founders in supporting high-impact startups across Southeast Asia. With a diverse portfolio ranging from e-commerce to healthcare, Paulo brings a wealth of knowledge on innovation, scaling businesses. welcome Paolo to the stage. And together, Paolo and Rajiv will explore the evolution of product experience and share valuable insights from their journeys. Let's jump into this very exciting discussion. I'll leave it up to you, Paolo.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Rajiv, for that amazing talk. I really enjoyed hearing that session, in particular because I think you weren't afraid to share the ups and downs of the journey. I think what I found often is that, often when you hear about success stories, you only hear the good stuff, right? You only hear when something breaks out, when something succeeds. And I think if I look around the room and see mostly founders in the audience who are likely in the trenches building as you are and continue to do, that those lessons and that journey about how not everything is up and to the right, and that there are ups and downs and pivots and hard pivots along the way is a very refreshing one. And then the fact that you're sharing that story with us, and not just the highs but also the lows, I think is something that I appreciated, and I can imagine everyone in the audience appreciated. So thank you so much for being open. Also, welcome to Manila. I think what we're excited about is that, as you said on your first slide, this is home for you. We were chatting yesterday that you actually would come to the Philippines growing up. So welcome to Manila. Maybe you can share a bit more about the last time you were here and just some of your Filipino heritage.
Well, yeah, I used to come every year for the holidays, and actually growing up. But the last time I was here was about a decade ago. I worked for Fairchild Semiconductor. I was mostly in Cebu, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time in Manila. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Great to have you, and again, and thanks to the organizers for having me, Jay, Butch, and the team. I think the goal for today is really focused on product, and I think you'll see the majority of the audience are founders building their own product. Maybe as you reflect on your tandem journey, and I think you gave your reflections on what worked and what didn't. Perhaps you can share what you're up to now and the journey that kicked off Product Hunt. You'll all remember that in the tandem journey that Tandem made it to the #1 product of the day on Product Hunt. So perhaps we can continue the story from there, Rajiv, and you can share how you ended up with this current role.
Oh yeah. So after we shut down the company, I took some time off, did some soul searching, and the founder of Product Hunt, Ryan Hoover, was one of my angel investors. So he was one of the people I went to when I was asking, like, what am I going to do next? Actually, how many of you are founders who've shut down a company and then looked for something new? A few people have been through that journey. It's like wandering in the forest. If you've been a founder, you kind of do all of these jobs, but you're never specialized on one. I remember having this conversation with one of my lead investors where I just asked him, what am I good for? What do I do now? And he laughed. It's you could work on product, you could start another company. It's you could do a lot of things. So it can take some time to find the next thing. But as I was searching, Ryan was one of the people I asked, hey, do you know any cool companies that I might want to work with? And he said,
Ryan is the founder of
Product Hunt. And he said, well, crazy idea. The previous CEO wants to move on. Would you want to step in? And yeah, and I think for me, Product Hunt changed my life. Even before we launched the first thing on Product Hunt, I was looking at it in the early days. It's what my future co-founders, Bernard and Tim, it's what we would look at and brainstorm, because you can see what the top builders are launching every single day. So we would look at it, we would talk about it. It kind of got our ideas flowing, and it's a big reason why I jumped in and started the company in the first place. So when I realized I could have the opportunity to shape the next chapter, I had to say yes.
No, it's great for us. And I noticed when you asked the audience earlier about who has launched on Product Hunt, there were a few hands that went up. But I agree with you that it would be great that coming out of your visit, if we could encourage some of the builders here building solutions to potentially list on Product Hunt. So maybe just to give a baseline understanding to everyone as to what Product Hunt is, what it does, if you don't mind just sharing more of that. And then speaking specifically to the founders in the room who might want to explore doing something on Product Hunt or launching their product on Product Hunt.
Yeah, it's a daily leaderboard of new startups launching. So you submit, you launch it's midnight Pacific, and it's competitive. The things that there's a really large community that looks to Product Hunt for what the next cool thing is. Investors, founders, other builders, aspiring builders, tech junkies. It's like the best pulse on what's new in tech. And so when you launch there, people upvote you and leave comments and leave feedback based on what they find interesting in your product. There's some awards, some prizes. Number one of the day. There's like a ranking every day. We have a newsletter that goes out to 1 million subscribers. It's an event. It's like gladiators every single day. I mean, launching a product is scary in itself, but we think we don't take the fear out of it, but I think we make it fun.
Great. And just to clarify, I can imagine you've had a lot of people now curious about what it takes. Does it have to be in a particular product category? Does it have to be a SaaS tool? How would you kind of dimensionalize and might it be relevant to for the audience building? I can imagine different industries and verticals.
It's pretty broad in terms of digital products. So we don't do physical products, but there's everything from consumer apps, social apps to enterprise SaaS to a lot of dev tools, because there are a lot of builders in the community as well. Things that other builders can use are really popular. Productivity apps are always a big category, but it's a pretty broad set. We have medical tech launching sometimes. It's yeah.
And then process-wise, how do you come up with those product of the day awardees, those product of the week? Is it something that is purely a function of the upvotes and feedback, or is there an editorial layer that you and the team look at, just so that people kind of can get behind the hood of how it works?
It's the community upvotes, and we have an algorithm that ranks products.
Fantastic. And if I reflect on your talk, and I think one of the key messages that I took out of it is really this need to constantly be listening to your customers, right? And what I loved about what you shared is that you knew that along every step of the way. And in fact, as you were talking, my question to you was, as you were going through those various pivots, from the crypto exchange to the hedge fund tool to the hard pivot to the remote work setup, and then the second kind of last phase around hybrid work, what I noticed is that you quickly iterated, right? I think often it's hard to give up on that idea you're working on, right? And one of the most challenging questions I've been asked in a panel like this in one of the earlier is, when is it time to give up? And my answer as an investor is, you don't give up. You have to keep going until you crack it, right? But on the building side, and given how important we all know it is to find some signs of product market fit before falling in love with the solution and the problem, not the solution. How did you know at each stage of the journey, what were those points that you decided to make those pivots, if you just reflect back on the journey?
So the question is, like, how do you decide when to change direction?
Exactly. Whether it be like a small pivot and some of those first ideas you shared, and then I think in particular when you decided to do the hard pivot, right? Like, what were those moments that you and process that you arrived at with your co-founders to get there? I can imagine a lot of people have that in mind.
This is the hardest thing in startups. If you change your idea too quickly, you never find any value. You never get anywhere. You never do anything innovative. If you take too long, if you're too stubborn to change the idea, you end up in a pit of despair, right? So it's really hard. I think I can share a couple of things that help for us. So there are two things. Like, one is just really simple and practical. In the early days, every week, just 3 founders, we would do a retro and we would ask ourselves, what's our learning rate? Low, medium, high. How much?
Learning rate.
Learning rate. Yeah. Subjective, but we could track it. And then we'd ask, why is it that way? And if it's not high, what would get us to high? And when we were not learning a couple weeks in a row, despite all our efforts, we felt pretty high conviction as a team. We needed to change something. So that's one. The other thing I'd say is, like, you have to build that muscle of pivoting with your co-founders. It's like, how do you pivot and stay friends?
Right.
And a framework that really worked for us was intentionally tagging conversations as either a growth conversation or a convergence conversation. So growth means you're all adding to the idea, building it up, helping add why this idea could be amazing, helping each other create this possibility. Convergence is like you're being critical. It's like,
duking it out.
Why will this not work? Why are we the wrong founders for it? Why will we not make money here? Why will we not be able to succeed against competitors? Why will it take too long and too much money for us to do this? Like, why will this not work? Or what is the narrow path that we actually need to take? And so one of the problems with pivoting is, especially in a group of 3 co-founders, one person's amped on an idea, but it's nascent. Everybody else can shoot it down, right? So it's like very hard to get an idea to reach escape velocity, and you can feel like in deadlock. Like nobody has any conviction on any ideas, because when one person has an idea, everybody shoots it down. It also feels terrible. It's like, I had this idea, I had this moment of inspiration.
You feel unsupported by the co-founder.
Yeah, and my co-founder just shot it down, and the worst part is he's right. He's right. And so you can end up with no ideas reaching escape velocity, and you're just in the doldrums forever. So by intentionally all of us going into growth or all of us going into convergence and asking the idea originator, like, are you ready for convergence? It helped us have more amplitude in our ideas and our feelings about the ideas and our conviction. And it helped us reach conviction relatively quickly.
I think it's a great practical advice for the builders out there, you know, where we really have to come to agreements with our co-founders on the strategy of the company. And I think Rajiv's advice around separating those growth conversations about what might be, right? The positive thoughts around specific ideas, and then separately then challenging each other, I guess, and figuring out what wouldn't work. That way you know which mindset you're in and building in the same direction. I think that's great practical advice. I want to double click on something you said in the first answer though, Rajiv. You mentioned this learning, you would assess how much you and your co-founders were learning from that particular week set of activities. Let's unpack that a bit more. How would you define learning, right? I mean, of course, everyone says listen to your customers, but maybe give us more flavor on those types of discussions when you would assess whether your learning that week was high, medium, low. What were those inputs that you would look at, and what practical advice would you give the founders in the audience around having this learning mindset?
Well, for any idea, you have a set of assumptions that are required to make this a huge venture scale product, right? And you have a certain amount of risk attached to each of those ideas, and you go after the most risky thing first. So, for Tandem in the early days, it was like, will people use this? Like, will people actually use this? And what will they use? Because it's competitive with Zoom, it's competitive with other things. Later it became like, will a certain type of user use this? Or like, will they use this feature? But you have a set of things that you're worried about, and the thing that you're most afraid about is probably the thing that you need to learn about the most. And so you kind of ask yourself, how much are you learning on that front? Early stage startups are like a lot about fear, right? Often you want to launch and you come up with all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't launch. It's not ready, people won't like it, all of these things. If you're to like ask yourself, I'm very guilty of this as well. Like, the real reason is I'm afraid people don't actually want it, that people are indifferent to it. And that's actually the default for launching. Yeah. It's not that people are angry, it's that they just like don't care. Yeah. And sometimes we're so afraid of that we just keep building. We just keep building, and there are no users, and we just keep building and building and building, and we never launch. And that's like a death spiral, because if you don't launch, you'll never know what people actually want. You can't make a great product without launching a bad product. And then the other reason that's bad is that the more you build without launching, the more invested you are and the harder it is to pivot. Our first product, Cryptagon, it took us like a month to build, and it took us like 5 months to pivot. The second product took us like a week to build. Everything after that, we never went more than a week without putting it in front of users. And it made it easier to be more scientific and to assess and to change direction. Yeah.
I think it's great advice. I think you can't build a good product without starting with a bad one. And what I took away from your narration of the story is that the advice to launch to the Y Combinator cohort, that week, and then in Product Hunt also that week, right? Because and that's your second point around the fear that that somehow it could be ourselves holding us back, and the denial of the fact that what you are working on, and that's where you can really fall in love with like the amount of work you put into solution, that it might not work out. I think that's great advice. I think said otherwise somehow sharks die unless they swim forward, right? Like somehow you have to keep swimming and then getting that customer feedback from the market to allow you to iterate rapidly as you did, right?
How many people have seen the film General Magic? General Magic, anybody? You should all watch this. It's a beautiful documentary. It's about the most influential tech company that nobody's ever heard of. This is a company that invented the iPhone in 1995. They were way too early. They IPO'd before they launched. This was the thing in 95. They actually had an IPO. And then they launched, and it was an utter disaster, but led to some really interesting outcomes. Highly recommend everybody watch. It's also just, I think it captures like the dream that is Silicon Valley. But of course, people do startups very different now. Like the lean startup, what Ed Reese did, changed the landscape of startups, I think, for the better.
Indeed, and maybe on that point around the shortening of the iteration cycles, you mentioned in your own journey, you kind of shortened the amount of time you spent building each iteration of your idea in order to allow you to collect initial data. Maybe some people in the audience are just beginning the journey and thinking about how to build their product. Any practical advice for them on how to not have to wait and work with a dev shop to release a version 1, right? Like how can they hack together some initial product builds from your experience or anything that you've seen on Product Hunt?
I think you need a technical co-founder.
And then among your team, how did you split that responsibility among the three of you?
So I did product. One co-founder was engineering, one co-founder was design. If you can find a trio that works that well together, it's absolutely a dream team in terms of product building.
Right. So you're saying first step is you need really a technical co-founder on the team. How, because I can imagine a lot of people in the team perhaps don't have the product experience that you might have. There potentially, a lot of founders here are business people with a great idea. How should they approach that first step of setting up the organization and the startup for success out of the gate?
It's always hard to give advice on co-founders, right? Because I know what worked for me and what I think is optimal, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's available to everybody. Like what I can say is that for me personally, I would never start a company without co-founders. Co-founders are almost the reason to start the company, like not just a helpful thing to have. And I think in terms of building tech products, I'm sure there are counterexamples, but you got to have somebody who is a co-founder, who's that invested, who you're mind melded with, who is technical. Otherwise, everything else will be slower and worse, right? It's very, you can do it if you're not building in a competitive space, but if you're building in a competitive space, I think you need a technical co-founder.
Indeed, and here I'll shout out the efforts of our friends at the DOST, the Department of Science and Technology, DICT. I think forums such as this, and you would have heard them talking about, Rajiv, the technology business incubators, which are located in schools across the country. There are over 50 of them, and they're meant to bring together different capabilities of people. A lot of technical people learn how to build products through the TBIs. So I think in the Philippine context, we have a lot of the government entities really helping that matching and bringing together potentially more commercially minded business founders with technical co-founders. So I think that's some practical advice from Rajiv there.
Quick show of hands. How many people have co-founders but no idea? No? How many people have co-founders and an idea?
So most co-founders and an idea.
How many people are solo founders?
Cool. A couple. Yeah. No, I'll echo. I mean that resonates a lot with me too, Rajiv, in the sense that the way I say the startup is nothing but a collection of talent, right? I think what again resonates in your journey is the fact that you didn't have an idea first and then found other people to build it with. You found the people first, and somehow the bond among your co-founders through the journey is what sustained you. And I've seen that as well. That really there's no you can't replicate the way that you end up really relying on your co-founder through the journey, through all the ups and downs and the perils of it.
Yeah, I mean, startups are so hard, right? Like they're hard in peculiar ways. Sometimes they're hard in this way of like existential, just constant existential angst. Like, are we building anything real? Like, does anybody care? Like, are we doomed? Like constant fear of failure. And then the highs are really high and the lows are really low. And it's almost like the thing I love about it though is it's like the Shackleton expedition, to the North Pole, right? When you're building an app that's new, you're actually learning something that nobody's ever learned before, and you're doing it with a team. And that feeling of steering your own ship, of everybody in the company feeling the ocean spray, finding land, going to land, like these are things that like just bring tremendous personal growth and fulfillment to me.
Fantastic. And hopefully many of you in the audience are here today precisely because you're on that journey and enjoying the ride. Despite the fact that, as you see in Rajiv's journey, that the ups and downs and the twists and turns to the tail are often frequent. Great. I'll throw you some questions that I believe the team sourced when people saw that you were going to speak with us. So I'll do a bit of a rapid fire here and just feel free to jump in on some of your thoughts. How do you see consumer expectations evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? As you said, at Product Hunt, you seem to have a very front row view of early adopters, and you have the ultimate leading indicator platform of what are the trends that are coming up. Perhaps you could just share with us some of the insights that you've seen at the helm of Product Hunt in terms of how expectations are changing and what kind of products are being built.
I could speak a little narrowly about something that's kind of interesting. How consumers interact with AI is an evolving topic right now. If people remember the mobile platform shift, it took a while for people to learn how to use mobile phones and for mobile UX to co-develop with people. And that's happening, but I think a lot faster with AI. And it's helped by the fact that ChatGPT was almost immediately adopted by like millions and millions of people. It's like a pretty fast consumer shift, and at the same time, the interplay with AI is very uncertain, right? Like, we see Copilot was one of the first really flagship apps, right, helping developers be way more productive. And then recently, we see Cursor innovating on that front and finding like new ways to make developers more productive. And there's enough space there that they're getting a ton of traction. Like people say they're 10x better than Microsoft's, GitHub Copilot. So there's still a lot of open space in the UX of how to interact with AI. I think that's going to continue to develop.
And I think opportunities that then there's no reason a team from the Philippines can't create a great product that way and use the reach and leverage of Product Hunt to release it to a market. I think that's great advice there. A few other questions shared by people before the session. What do you think sets products apart in today's market? how can creators focus on delivering unique value? I think it's a general question, but from the trends of what you're seeing and what's become successful in Product Hunt, what are the, what do you think that's setting those apart?
It's in some ways the same thing it's always been. It's solving a really, really important problem, and describing that, like positioning in a way that's like startlingly clear and compelling to people. For example, one app that recently did quite well in Product Hunt, Toby, they let you work with people in any language. So they do real-time translation with a 2-second delay. You can talk in English and the other person can talk in Spanish and you can work together. It's like a very clear value prop. It's uniquely enabled by AI. It really delivers, right? The product has to deliver. And so, it's that combination of like making a very clear promise to the user and then over-delivering on that promise.
I think
easy to say and so hard to do.
It's easy to say, and I think when you do have it, it seems that simple, right? I think the fact that you're able to articulate that the concept of Toby so simply is what makes it really work, is that it's a really resident problem to be solved. And on a related note, I think the next question is around building a sense of community. What are some strategies for creating an engaged, passionate community around the product? I think you had mentioned, leveraging Discord is a quick way to kind of bring community together. From what you've seen on the products that are able to succeed on Product Hunt, what are some of the strategies to build a community around the product?
I think it starts with building a product that people love. Everything after that is pretty straightforward. You create a space for people to meet, you talk to your users, you create events and points for them to gather. But the thing that's hard and the thing that's special, like the reason companies like Vercel and Supabase and have these like really strong and Cursor have these like really strong communities, is because they're fantastic products. These teams have like talked very closely with users. They've listened very closely to the right subset of their users and over-delivered.
No, I think it's great advice, Rajiv. Thanks so much. In the last few minutes, perhaps we can, reflect a little bit on what you would like to get out of this trip to the Philippines. I saw we were together yesterday, and I see how much you enjoy meeting founders. If we can perhaps wrap up with some general advice from you, given the journey shared with us and some of your views on building product. I can look around the room, majority of people here are in the trenches, as I said, building companies as you are. Maybe some last words of advice for them, and if an invitation potentially to come chat afterwards. But
launch sooner. Launch sooner. If you haven't launched yet and you have some questions, come up to me. Tell me what you're building. Tell me how I can help.
So Rajiv said it very simply, guys. Launch sooner. Put what you're building out there into the universe and see how customers react. But I think more importantly, as Rajiv shared in his journey, and again, thank you, Rajiv, for sharing, very openly your journey. That this journey is filled with ups and downs. So don't also let the lows take you too low or the highs get you too high. I want to thank Rajiv for spending time with us this morning. It's great to welcome you back to the Philippines after all these years. For you to be sharing and imparting your experience in Silicon Valley and your experience with Tandem and Product Hunt to the rest of us. And thank you so much for being here, Rajiv.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paolo and Rajiv, for that very insightful conversation. Can we please ask you to stay on the stage for a few more minutes? We'd also like to call Ms. Ibanez and Dave Del Rosario to please come up on stage and join us for a very quick photo op. you so much, everyone. Our next session dives into the thriving digital economy of Southeast Asia. As the region undergoes rapid digital transformation, it's essential to understand the trends shaping its future and the opportunities emerging from startups. Our speaker has extensive experience nurturing groundbreaking startups across Asia Pacific with a background that spans roles in the United Nations, high growth startups, and public private partnerships in tech. She's passionate about leveraging technology to drive inclusive growth and uplift emerging markets. Please join me in welcoming Regional Startup Success Manager for Google Cloud Southeast Asia, Ms. Esna Ong.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I hope everyone is feeling great from Philippine Startup Week. It's awesome to be here. I was just telling Rajiv I'm a huge fan of Product Hub myself. And of course, we co-hosted a great party yesterday with Paulo and the Kaya Founders team. So it's great to go after them. My name is Esna, and me and my team, we drive startup engagements and our programs across APAC. And myself, I'm focusing a lot more on emerging markets this year. Okay. Yeah, so today, I think the clicker. I'll just allow maybe a. Oh, right, here. Here? Oh, okay. Sorry, sometimes I'm embarrassed to say that I work in tech. But we're here today to share our latest economy report that was just launched last week. It's a huge amount of effort that goes into this, along with Bain and also Temasek. So you're getting kind of a front, fresh off the press view of this. It's 128 pages long, so that's why I have the next 2 hours with you. Okay, just kidding. I only have 20 minutes, so I'll spare you the rest, but I do have a link to download it at the end. Okay, so maybe just a show of hands. How many of you have been to at least one of these countries in the last 12 months? Okay, keep your hands raised. At least one? Okay, at least two. Three. Oh, okay, at least 4 countries. Oh, Dave. But now, at least 5 countries. Okay, we have 2, at least 6, all 6 of these countries. Okay, we have one lady there, super cool. So I myself have been to all 6 in the last 12 months, and I think the growth across our region is tremendous. So we're gonna share some spotlights of the huge growth that is happening. Thank you so much. Let's see if this works. Yes, it does. Thank you. So we're going to also highlight a bit about Philippines, and also I'm told that people have a lot of interest in Indonesia and Vietnam, so a bit more spotlight on that. So first off, our GDP growth, I think we can be very encouraged that we are trending actually close to China. So we clocked 4.6% growth. As you can see there, we've also put there USA and EU with about 2.4 and a bit less than 1% respectively. And some of the trends that we're seeing, is a lot of text on screen, so just highlighting a few of the numbers. So huge growth in e-commerce, right? And I think all of us here in the room are probably contributing to it ourselves. One thing to note is that in the last 10 years, e-commerce, people are purchasing at least 8 times more than in the last decade. But another interesting thing to note is that the average basket size is decreasing. So right now we're seeing about 18 to 23 to about 13 to 15 more. So people are purchasing a lot more frequently, but lesser, for each size. And even in Singapore, right now, what's getting very popular is a lot of our deliveries are free because we're going to residents, fellow neighbors to do our pickups from different e-commerce platforms. So I think everyone is finding new ways to reach consumers more easily. Another thing to take note of, gaming is also huge growth, especially for Southeast Asia. We see this in Vietnam. It's actually one of the countries that I take care of as well for our startup programs. So you can see, apart from traditionally just ads, they're utilizing a lot of in-app purchases and subscriptions as well to kind of diversify their various revenue streams. So we're going super fast now. It's okay. I'll put the link to download the report at the end. You see a lot of people taking photos. And you can see as well, gaming, just a bit more stats. If you can zoom in, you can see crazy amounts of growth in category creators, a number of followers per category as well. So that's something that you may want to engage these group of creators as you are thinking of how to reach new followers and new consumers for your own startups. And one thing that we want to zoom into that I found particularly interesting for the Philippines, so only 20%, I think no surprises to you, of video creators create content primarily in local languages. And I've put there some stats. If you compare it to Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, that's actually quite an accessible way of reaching consumers, especially for startups that may not be native to the Philippines, because you can be reaching audiences with English as compared to ranging from 85 to 88%, as you can see in the box in yellow. And for the Philippines as well, e-commerce is the breakout star. And I just wanted to highlight, so we have been seeing 23% growth from 2023 to 24. Why this is significant? It is the highest across Southeast Asia. I think the next is, if I'm not wrong, maybe Thailand, around 19%. So huge, momentum that we're seeing in Philippines, and it's always important to also kind of compare it against our other neighbors in the region. And over in AI in Southeast Asia, which we have dedicated quite a huge chunk in the report as well, very happy to share that Philippines is among the global top 10 for AI-related searches and demand. And you can see some of the usual suspects for industries driving AI interest, education, marketing, gaming, but also automotives, that we are seeing a lot more interest coming in. And a bit more about the infrastructure in terms of investment. So Google itself, we have announced billion-dollar investments into Malaysia and Thailand. So some of our senior leadership was in town recently, where they were able to meet with the prime ministers of these countries respectively. So we're really excited about that. Breakout star for this segment would be Malaysia. So $15 billion committed for AI-ready data centers. So you can see there, Thailand and Malaysia seeing the lion's share of growth, so about 500 to 550%. So that's where, even for myself, we have been seeing a lot of startups. We journey with hundreds of them. And I would say right now, if we're in conversations with the startups and they are not thinking about how to include AI features in their products, then we are kind of concerned about them, because it's really just the norm nowadays. But that has also been leading to a huge appetite for GPU resources, TPUs as well, which is why the infrastructure investment has been really accelerating. So some of the use cases that we've been seeing commonplace across, for example, e-commerce would be product recommendations. Even in gaming, I have seen really, really cool demos where the users can sketch their weapons into existence, or sketch their own skins. They just craft out a sword, and then it appears in the game right after that. So a bit of blend of a Web3 and gaming, that example I saw in Vietnam. So that's really cool. And for fintech industry, underwriting and risk assessment, normally work streams that take ages and hours, now we are able to streamline it into probably just seconds. And for Philippines as well, Calabarzon, Central Luzon, and Davao lead the AI interest and demand. So we're seeing a lot in education, marketing, and gaming. And I've also put a bit of a comparison with Indonesia, which is also, a very vast set of different cities, which we are seeing a lot of interest from East Kalimantan and Riau Islands, on top of course, the usual suspect, Jakarta. And you can see top industries about the same, but almost in reverse order. So just to click back, for Philippines, it was education, marketing, and then gaming. For Indonesia, it was marketing, gaming, and then education. And so for VC funding, I know we have a few VCs in the room today. So just a stock take of where we are right now from the highs of 2021 and 2022. We haven't quite recovered to pre-pandemic levels yet, but last year we saw a combine of about $4 billion across almost 900 different deals in Southeast Asia. So once again, double clicking into the Philippines. Last year we saw about 300 million. But one thing to note is Philippines is actually one of the few Southeast Asian countries bucking the trend where we are seeing a recovery in H1 of 2024. If you look into the report, for most countries, it's still either about the same or even declining for 2024. So that's something that we can be positive and optimistic about. So that was kind of not the 128 page, but just a quick breeze about the things that we can be excited in the region. And of course, for Google Cloud, we're also doing a lot of exciting things supporting startups. If you haven't heard about our program, you can scan this QR code where we are journeying with startups, especially for AI, helping them to build their moonshot goals in data, machine learning. So that's why we love our jobs. And that's why we are here to really hope to do more in the Philippines as well. So I'll just leave this here for maybe 3 more seconds. Still see some people clicking it. All right, anyway, we have it at the back too. And if you want to download the full report, you can do so here. Once again, this just came out last week, so we're all really excited to share with you. And we hope you took away something from today. Get things going for your startups, your collaborators, or even your VC with your investors to talk about and see which is the next frontier of growth you can unlock. So hope that I stayed on time. Yes, just in time. So once again, I'm Esna. I'm our team. We lead our startup programs across APAC. So if you want to stay in touch, here's my LinkedIn, and I would love to catch up with y'all later. We are the hydration station of the conference where we're having a slushy machine. So do come by. You just need to drop your name card. We don't charge. But thank you all so much, and I hope you have the great rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Esna. But before we let you go, if I can just quickly ask you to come back on stage for a very quick photo op. We'd also like to ask Ms. Ibanez and Dave Del Rosario to please join on stage. A quick reminder to everyone, we do have a working lunch for today. Please feel free to grab your lunch in the garden area, and you're allowed to bring it back here in the Silk with us. So yeah, please, again, a quick reminder, grab your lunch in the garden area and come join us back here at the Silk. Thank you so much. Building on Esna's insights into the digital economy, we now shift focus to the innovators at the forefront of product development. As technology continues to evolve, so do the ways we create and shape products. Let's dive into the next session and meet our distinguished panelists who are leading these exciting transformations. Our first panel brings together innovators who are shaping the future of products. As technology evolves, product development is transforming rapidly, and this discussion will delve into the latest trends and breakthroughs that are defining the landscape. Let's meet our distinguished panelists. Arnold Bagabaldo is the CEO of Packetworks, a pioneering company in IoT technology, making significant strides in developing smart infrastructure solutions in the Philippines. With a strong background in telecommunications and extensive experience in voice and data network management, Arnold is dedicated to driving the country's digital transformation. EJ Angeles co-founded Mold, a circular design studio and marketplace in Manila, focusing on sustainable product design that merges technology with everyday living. Mold is dedicated to material exploration and recycling, creating innovative products that contribute to a sustainable future. Albert Padin is a technologist and entrepreneur with 17 years in the startup tech industry, specializing in cloud architecture and AI. Currently, he's driving strategy and technology at MWell, a health and wellness mega app with a mission to make healthcare more accessible to Filipinos worldwide. Our moderator, Alexis Collado, is the co-founder and chief design officer at Swarm. where he connects tech innovators with boutique consultancies specializing in AI, software engineering, and design. With experience in leading design for Y Combinator backed startups, he also co founded UX Plus Conference, the largest design conference in Asia, and actively mentors young designers. Now let's welcome our panelists once again as they take the stage to dive deeper into these exciting trends and innovations shaping the future of products.
All right. Hello, mic test. Okay, so thanks everyone. So today we're going to be speaking about the future of products. So how about we start with a quick intro from your perspective about what you're currently doing now and some high-level thoughts about what the future of products look like in your industry. But make it short, like
Yeah. So I'm Albert. Hi, everyone. I also work for a company called MWell, Chief Strategy and Technology for MWell. I also have a company called Symph. It's a software design development application studio. We also do AI stuff. Now, all I could think about with a product topic is that, oh boy, we're sitting here right before lunch, and we basically lost maybe half the crowd to lunch. And I was thinking, one thing I'm really excited about for product innovation is AI, because AI doesn't need to eat, my friends. So never goes hungry, never stops working. So off to you.
Yeah, so hi, I'm EJ Angeles, one of the co-founders of Mold. So Mold is really try to focus on trying to make things circular, meaning how do we think about the product at the end of its life cycle. So for us, I really think the products in the future would be more sustainable. They would be using more renewable materials. Like for us, we're trying to recycle different kinds of waste like plastic, used coffee grounds. We're even trying to make biomaterial like from algae or even like vegan leather from kombucha and stuff like that. So that's what I think. In the future, we will not get products from virgin plastics. We will try to use whatever is there already and try to create something more or something of value from that. So yeah, that's for us.
Yes, and I'm Arnold Bagabaldo. I'm the founder of Packetworks. We're into IoT. IoT is a big word. We see ourselves as enablers for IoT in the Philippines. They say that AI, data is the new oil, and IoT is one of those things that enable you to collect data from physical sources, which will enable AI and the future. So, thank you.
all right. So Arnold, let's start with you. So you are one of the thought leaders in IoT in the Philippines. You recently held your conference, right? And what's your view on AI specifically, right? Since my smartphone is an IoT device, right? So how are you thinking about product development in that sense for IoT and AI?
Well, from my point of view, AI is a very useful tool. We've been, this is one of the enabling technologies that would change how we do things. And it's definitely, we don't know yet how broad the application of this will be. But we've seen, in the history, we've seen electricity as changing how it changed our lives, the wheel, and then more recently, the internet. And I think AI is one of those enabling technology that will change how we do things.
All right, and EJ, you literally have a circular design agency and a makerspace, and typically in sustainability focused companies, I don't know how you think about AI, but maybe you see it as an enemy, right?
No,
but
actually-
what are your thoughts on it?
Actually, no. So I tried to co-found my first company 15 years ago. I was in advertising for a really long time. And now that I'm making a new company, AI has really enabled me. Like, it's so nice to create new companies in this day and age, actually. And it's just not now. Like, just 4 years ago without AI, I remember that if you want to do your research, you want to do your product iterations, it takes a long time. I remember when for this year, or for our first product, we used AI actually from gathering data, from gathering insight or customer feedback, and even the whole iteration process. So even with the products that we sell right now, it just started as a sketch, like a literally black and white
It's like
sketch.
your jellyfish
And
lamp.
the jellyfish lamp, and it just actually, and our first iteration was just put it through AI, and AI would actually do the visualization of it. We could ask it, how can we make the strongest structure with the least amount of material? All of these things AI can already do, all the way to actually selling it from you doing the e-commerce site. Everything is actually powered by AI. And what I like about it is that you don't need a lot of people to actually run it. And that's what I think is exciting about AI, is really making you more efficient. It's like, I don't know, like making you more superhuman or like a meta-human. So yeah.
For sure. Like I love how you told story about, literally creating handmade products using AI. Albert, you're in one of the more sensitive, industries. Like you work in healthcare. You're leading digital transformation for MWell, right? So how are you thinking about that and integrating AI into your, product roadmap?
Very, very carefully. No, so there's different things with AI. There's the part of AI where you use data in your databases to sort of predict, and I think that's where the sensitive area is. But there's also use cases in AI, specifically around generative AI, that are not as sensitive, that have health tech use cases. I mean, there's the area of mental health, we have mind health, right? So, there's that AI counselors. There's a shortage of psychologists. Did you guys know that there's only 800 practicing licensed psychologists for the entire Philippines? 800. Like, wow, that's not enough. Like, that's not even close at all. So we need innovations around, generative AI to actually solve problems that we have today that's even ever growing, especially with the advent of AI, putting pressure on people that are even, suffering or facing mental health challenges. And so that's the way I would compartmentalize is that you can actually segregate in health tech, the things that are sensitive and the things that are not as sensitive, and attack first, attack aggressively those that are less sensitive than those that are, regulated and heavily watched.
All right. I don't know if you're thinking about building an AI therapist or something. Right. But one thing I want to dive into, since my background is in design, and I really, it's a big thing to focus on the customer and the user, right? And since our industries are rapidly changing, how are you incorporating still the customer at the heart of your innovations and your product strategy? Let's start again with you, Arnold.
Yes. To us, customer engagement is critical. We wouldn't have survived without us engaging our customers very closely, especially in our field. We're in hardware, right? So we do use software, and it makes sense of the data that we generate. But IoT is all about sensing. So we have to deploy these devices at right now enterprise market. So when we started, there's not a lot. I mean, IoT is nascent in the in the Philippines. So we had to really go in there and then show our products and the services to the customers and get their feedback as to how they see themselves using it.
And your product offering is in long range wide area network, like technology and adjacent products. Like, can you explain to us how you're thinking about evolving that even more, or do you feel like the Philippines is behind in terms of IoT and the international market?
Well, yeah, a lot of the Asian countries, except a few, are a bit behind with the Europeans and the Americans in terms of technology. Where our biggest export is not technology, it's labor, right? But with the changes that is happening right now, in software became easy. A lot of the startups are doing software because you have the cloud, you have the tools that you can use. Before you have to start from scratch. Now you have libraries and everything. It's happening in hardware as well. So in hardware, there are libraries of designs out there that you can peruse and start with. So it's not that hard to make hardware. So I see the Philippines as we're proving it, we're showing it that hardware can be done by Filipinos. So I think moving forward, I see that growing more and more.
All right. And EJ, speaking of being behind, I think the whole world is behind on circular design, right? And trying to achieve, ESG goals. Like, how are you thinking about that? And what's driving your strategy for your company, right? In mold.
Well, we kind of know that Philippines is #1 producer of single-use plastic. I remember when I was in Japan and they were showing me how these large industrial 3D printers can actually use organic material to create tables like as big as these or even chandeliers as big as that. And what really struck me is how the process of, iterating of creating the products is quite important to the whole process. So for example, for us, we really try to use customer engagement as a way to gather a lot of input on terms of how they want their products to be like, and I think it's more of how we iterate in terms of how fast we can come up with the product and get feedback from our customers is really integral. And from before that, we would come out with products, let's say in 6 months' time. Through gathering so much data from our users, we're able to create our products faster, like in a 1 month span. We can keep on iterating, especially with additive manufacturing nowadays, and and all of that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. And Albert, you just mentioned now that you only have 800 licensed therapists. Like, how are you thinking?
Psychologists, yeah.
Yeah, like how are you thinking through that problem and working through that problem yourself? Since you're relatively new to your role, I think, at MWell, like you've been a year in as a Chief Digital Transformation Officer. How has it been for you?
So, okay. Well, it's not just problems in psychology. That's just one, right? I think what we're doing at MWell is we're digitally transforming the kind of like the whole health and wellness industry. We're starting from the wellness all the way down to the hospitals, clinics. So it's a whole suite of services and products to basically digitally transform the whole space. Now, it's a lot of work. It's fortunate that the MVP Group has a lot of money to invest on that, because there's no way a startup can do that, all of those things, if you don't have the investments in place. But that said, I think what I'm excited about, because with the advent of AI, we can actually unlock use cases, solutions, and features to the market, without much cost anymore and at higher speed. Taking a step back, I actually see, since I'm grateful to all of you guys here for staying for this. So I think this is important to you about how products are going to be innovated, how products are going to be created in the next couple of years. I think if we take a step back, with the advent of YouTube, the iPhone, right, the handheld device, recording devices, you have the explosion of content, right? Before, you could only produce and watch content through major publishing, broadcasting, TV, film studios. And then there was YouTube, and then, user economy, user-generated content exploded. And now we can't watch enough. There's too many to watch even in our lifetimes, many times over. So that's the explosion of content. And I think with the advent of AI, there's also, among many other explosions, will be actually the explosion of product innovation and product in itself.
Lowers the barrier to entry too.
Yeah. I mean, we have, I've seen interns, not even finished college yet, create full products faster than any senior developer can, right? With AI, and then we're only 2 years into the generative AI ChatGPT thing, and we've already seen this kind. So this is going to be an explosion of product creation, product innovation. So how I think about it is, You know how Facebook like experiments A/B testing, personalized A/B testing to specific to its 1 billion user base. That I think is going to be replaced by AI generated A/B tests, if it's not yet already, right? In creating tweaks, new features for specific users, testing that, improving that, all powered by AI or heavily powered by AI. So that's product innovation. How do you keep your users interested in your platform? It's by giving them what they want, and you do this by AI. Now, the next thing is, that's innovation, right, for existing products. How about product creation, new product creation? I think the biggest headache of guys like Facebook or other existing products would be, if there is another one that comes around on the other side of the block, new player on the block, right? The cost of switching for the customers is so low, right? Because we're in a hyper-connected world, anybody can just switch. So today you might be the king. Tomorrow it can be TikTok, right? And the barrier to switching, the cost of switching is becoming lower and lower every single day. And so I think as product makers, we ought to be thinking on those two areas. Number one, how do we keep the people that are using our products happy? And then second is, how do we actually watch the competition, watch the space, and innovate with new products that eventually might even cannibalize our own, right? In favor of creating a new product that's way, way better. And I think this is what Apple did, right? With the iPad, the iPhone, and the iPod, right? The iPod disappeared in favor of the iPhone. And I think that's how they cannibalize their own product line. But it was a very good move, because if they didn't, if they were stuck with their initial really good selling product, they wouldn't create a new category. So yeah, that's what I think I ponder on. I don't have the answers of how we will take advantage of that, but I think that's where it's going.
Like two things that you mentioned. So I think the first core point is around rapid testing. Like, you can literally create prototypes, even productized versions of the thing you want to build through AI, because it's just so fast. And you mentioned just a little bit earlier to Arnold, right? With hardware designs being easily more accessible. And second is AI, or whatever you want to call it. Like, how do you differentiate through innovation if the switching costs are becoming too low, because there are so many alternatives in the market, right? I want to dive deep into the testing point first, right? Like, being able to create faster prototypes and testing it out with your market. Arnold, can you share a story or a use case where this is true for you at Packetworks?
You mean experience in terms of testing products and stuff? Yeah. In our case, we deal a lot with enterprise, and the reason for that is that there's going consumer is very dangerous for us. For a startup, you have two choices, right? As a startup, you can go deep, meaning create a particular product, and you have to be very strong in that product. Otherwise, if there's no traction, or there's no product market fit, then you're dead, right? And we've seen that, right? So another way of doing it, and that's the direction that we've chosen. We believed in IoT becoming a success in general, the technology. I mean, we all need it, the same as with AI and additive manufacturing. So instead, we tasked ourselves to become enablers on the industry. So we Filipinos are used to thinking that we can do all by ourselves, not partnering with anybody. I've seen how it's done in other countries, including US, and collaboration is a big thing. And in this case, our approach is in enabling become enablers for the technology. So we provide connectivity and we design the hardware, but there's a lot of software developers around. So in our industry, we need somebody to make sense of the data, and that's being handled by software and AI. And we thought to ourselves that by making the hardware easy, then we can enable a lot of these software developers to come up with additional value to what they're doing, not just software. So in our case, that being said, circling back to your question as to what we're doing in terms of making this, iterative process in improving our design and our product. Of course, critical to this is being in front of the customers, hearing what they need and what they want, and changing the product that we are providing them. You need really friendly clients for this. And Yajiv earlier was saying that when they get their first clients, it was actually people that within their circle, and this is critical. When you launch a product, you do it first with people that could tolerate certain. Things will break, and you need clients who are and you have to be upfront with them on this. When it breaks, make sure that your clients understand that you're a startup and that you're willing to make adjustments to make it right with them. And of course, at the end of the day, to iterate on this, it's actually the hardware is a small part of thing in terms of IoT. It's how you use the data that is important. A lot of people, when you talk to enterprises, they're not interested in what technology you're using. At the end of the day, they're interested in the outcome, the utility of the data that they're getting. And a lot of this is how you interpret the data, how you process the data, how you make sense of the data. And again, the answer to your question is we do some changes on the hardware based on feedbacks from our customers. But a lot of this is understanding the exact requirement of the client in terms of what data they need, and presenting it to them the way that they can consume it. So yeah, more on the software than the hardware.
Now, what I love about at least how you're attacking the market is it actually positions you perfectly to kind of dominate in the space. Because for AI to work really well, you need actual good data infrastructure, data readiness, and if you're aligned with the clients and what outcomes they want, based off the data, that's going to be perfect, right? And not a lot of people are doing that. But then I want to come back to EJ here and get to understand what's your, you build like products that are, environmentally friendly, circular design in terms of principles. How are you doing your go-to-market, right? Because I've noticed while I visited your Instagram page that you have a lot of cool events. You're collaborating with your customers with the products that you want to create. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So when I really started Mold, I really wanted to create products that, for home, for art. But I realized that I cannot just go to market just by doing that. So we actually have 4 components happening in the company right now. So mine is object, so basically making the products itself. But we have 3 integral parts that contribute to the success of our go-to-market strategy to some point. Like our first ever push or activity was trying to teach kids how to reimagine what they do with waste. Because in the future, actually in 10, 15 years from now, all of us, especially our kids, will just be full of trash. And at an early age, they kind of need to realize what can they do with these materials. As simple as these plastic bottles, like we're trying to show them that you can crush them, that this is not just waste, but it's it's a material that you can use to create new products, not just 3D printing, but other traditional methods. You can actually use that as a material. We also have different workshops for adults, like we teach them how to deal with their waste. Like this coming weekend, we're gonna teach people how to deal with their Lazada waste, and how to create bags out of them, how to create pouches and all that. And that actually changes the relationship of what waste is. And maybe lastly, we have our lab team. Our lab teams actually their background is mostly computational design. They're mostly architects, and we actually share with different brands like how you can actually have a more circular approach on your products or your efforts. So all of that actually contributed to giving a better story to the products that we are making. And I feel like if I did not have all these other activities at the back, our products will never really fly. It would just seem some sort of, I don't know, it's just for aesthetics or it would lack soul. But it's really through this community building and especially the storytelling on how we really talk about circular design helps us actually go to market faster and with more impact at the least. Like people really understand why we made it and they easily resonate with it because of basically our story.
I resonate with that a lot myself as a community, as a go-to-market strategy, especially with us at Swarm. I think it's the only way to do it moving forward, at least for our industry. Because no one knows how to adopt AI. So we host different dinners, demo nights, together with the people we want to collaborate with and partner with to move forward with our strategy and go-to-market strategy. So, Albert, like I was peering through like the news section of your MWell's website, and I've noticed that you're targeting OFWs for your for your product. Like, what's the thought process behind that?
Oh, I mean, first of all, we have a lot of OFWs, and OFWs get sick, right? So imagine a domestic helper that's in Saudi Arabia and then gets sick, wants to talk to a Saudi Arabian doctor, or it's not really the most exciting thing to do, and you're vulnerable in a foreign country. So you want to talk to somebody who knows how to speak your language, who knows, can empathize with your situation, knows how we are as a culture. And so that's the kind of bridge that we provide. And that's the use case for that specific target. But that's just one target, because health is for everybody. And so OFWs, we just identified a really big gap in that market.
And how are you thinking about expanding distribution for your product specifically? Like, because a suite of healthcare related products, right? Like, and if you're head of digital transformation, you'll have to decide, okay, what's the beachhead? What are the adjacencies? What do we attack first?
That kind of question is really good for a startup. And I always say that as well. But an animal is not an ordinary startup. It's part of a conglomerate with very, I would say, conglomerate thinking. And with conglomerate thinking is basically do everything all at once at the same time. I mean, that's what conglomerates do. They have so many companies running at the same time. And I think that kind of extends in some way to the way they also think about startups. Like, yeah, let's just do many things at the same time. And I think the challenge for a startup at that phase is how to stay sane while all of that is happening, because you have multiple focus, which kind of defeats the word focus, right? So what you do though is to make sure that you get the budgets, the resources to actually afford to run all these things in parallel. So that's the thing that you gotta manage. That's what I personally found interesting about coming in from a very traditional startup. Yeah, traditional startup thinking, which is do one thing and do it very well, to kind of corporate startup, which is how about let's do things all at once kind of thinking, and let's throw money at it if we need to kind of thinking.
Okay,
So that's
throw
interesting.
throw some my way.
No, I mean, I am not saying that there's unlimited resources, but of course, with bigger companies like this, they can kind of pull off that kind of play. It's still a risky play, but they kind of pull off that play because they do have the resources to back it.
All right, that's certainly a different mental model from startup thinking. One of the questions I like here that Peter prepared, this is probably your last question, right? I'll read it out loud for everyone. What are the essential ingredients for a successful cross-industry partnership, especially when it comes to product innovation? So Arnold, like I noticed on your website, like literally the first thing you display are your partners, right? So I think you're a great person to explain how you're approaching this.
I think we're unique in a way because, again, as mentioned earlier, we see ourselves as enablers. we're a social enterprise, and our mission is to accelerate adoption of IoT in the Philippines. And to do that, we need to have, we need to take care of the ecosystem, meaning engage a lot with, the academe, the government, and the partners. So, and that's our business. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we're betting on the industry and the technology to flourish, not just a particular use case. So it is in our best interest to make sure that partners really shine. The company we're experts in IoT. If you can, say experts, in the Philippine setting, right? But we're not expert in any industry in particular. So we need partners who are experts in their own verticals, so they can leverage IoT to, again, the promise of IoT is to increase efficiency, increase productivity. And it's not a technology that is on itself, sexy, meaning, you don't implement a technology for the sake of technology. There has to be an ROI to it. And in our case, we really need to leverage our partners' expertise in the different fields so they can tell us, how they see using IoT in their various industries benefit them. And that's where, the magic happens.
All right. And EJ, I think for your, maker space, you leverage a lot of partners too. And I think I think you're evangelizing circular design to a lot of your consumers through workshops. Can you tell us more a bit about that?
Well, for us, I really think that people who come to Mold have this shared vision of what they want the future to be like. For example, for us, we actually try to advocate, like in the future, it's not really cyberpunk where corporations really rule the world or rule the community, but it's more of a solar punk environment where we have smaller communities, people make their own food, people make their own tools or their own products. I actually see that in the future, we won't really be very dependent on big brands. Like we might not really buy IKEA anymore because we can just share files with one another. We can build our own things, our own tools. And I think that's what gravitates people towards us, like because they also share this vision of the future. So I think for us also, like successful partnerships, how it looks like is they really have the shared objective. And at the same time, we have like complementing expertise. That's why in our space, there's different people like educators. We have preschool teachers. We have architects. We have interior designers. Even us, I come from advertising. I'm pretty much a storyteller or a visual artist in a sense. So these are the kind of like our key ingredients. That's why people are fans, I guess. I think that's the most simplest way I could say it. And that's, I think, what keeps us going to create even more. So yeah.
All right, so I guess there's no space for you, Albert, since...
All right.
No, sorry. Since EJ said the future is not enterprise-driven, but I guess I still have to ask you, how are you thinking about your partnership strategy? Because as you said earlier, everything is going on all at the same time, and everything kind of is on fire also, or I don't know if you have you don't have unlimited money, but you also have a lot of money.
So they send the questions ahead, right? So we can prepare. This is the last question, and I was really excited by my answer, but you twisted it a bit. So now I'm like, oh, shucks, okay. Partnerships, and well, I was revolving around the word empathy. And empathy and exposure. Empathy through exposure. Like, we kind of like gravitate towards each other, startup people, and we kind of just, go to the same conferences. And one of the things that I found very interesting was when I attended like this water conference. Not like, it was all about water, like pumps and water containers that look like that. And they were like, you just met people who were so passionate about water stuff. And this whole kind of, you're probably exposed to this because IoT, they probably use devices like that in. But to me, like a software guy, primarily software guy, found this very fascinating. What was also very interesting was that they found my industry, AI, they've never heard of it. Like what's that? Like, I mean, here you could walk into, it would be a rarity, a miracle if somebody didn't use ChatGPT, right? But there you would not meet, you'd probably be, surprised to meet somebody who knows and uses ChatGPT. They don't. And so suddenly, I'm the cool guy, right? Like I show them ChatGPT, they're like, whoa, like, so what am I saying here really? Essential ingredients to successful partnerships or, product innovation is to create new products that are really cool. I think is in the intersection of different domains of expertise, at the fringes of your communities. So it's another fancy way of saying like dare to go out of your comfort zone, right? To meet new people, to expose yourself to their worlds, to different worlds, because there are many. Be intentional about that. It will open our minds. It will expose us to things that we don't know before. It will help us develop empathy that we can apply our expertise in to create new products. And so that's the alarm actually. So if you are out of ideas for product innovation, if you want to create a new product that's, to bring into the market, I think the advice would be, an essential ingredient here would definitely be expose yourselves to things that you haven't been exposing yourselves to recently. So that's all.
All right, that wraps up our panel. Thank you for ending it with that. So I think what Albert said is go to places where people don't know you, so you're the cool guy, right? So in this panel, we talked about differentiation, go-to-market, testing, AI, and all of those things. And this startup week, events like this, it's great that we all get to meet and see each other's passions. So yeah, please talk to our panelists later on if you have time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that very insightful conversation. We'd like to request a very quick photo op with the four of you on stage before we proceed to the next one. Thank you so much. Our next discussion tackles the transformative impact of AI on society. With generative AI reshaping industries and problem solving, this panel will assess the past, present, and future of AI applications, exploring the strategies needed to succeed in a post-AI world. Joining us for this panel are some of the leading voices in AI and digital transformation. Dominic Ligot is a data analyst, software developer, and technologist with a strong focus on social impact and data ethics. He is the founder of Zeralytics, a social impact AI company, and Data Ethics PH, an online community advocating for responsible use of data. Dominic's work spans areas like human rights, public health, and fighting disinformation through computational social science and AI. He's also a three-time global winner of the NASA and ESA International Space App Challenges. Gina Romero is a Filipino-British entrepreneur and tech advocate with a focus on ethical AI. She co-founded Connected Women, which empowers Filipinas in vulnerable communities, and currently leads MetaMatch, an AI-driven data services company. Gina is also a finalist in VentureBeat's Women in AI Awards and sits on the board of De La Salle University and the Towns Foundation. Bernadette Salinas, or Adette, has over 20 years of experience in IT and data, driving digital transformation initiatives. She is currently the Chief Data Officer at Kayana, where she leads the company's data and AI initiatives to create a dynamic digital ecosystem for the MVP group of companies. Our moderator for today is attorney Josel Dilag, who is a lawyer, innovator, and entrepreneur. As the CEO of LegalDex AI, he utilizes generative AI to streamline legal information delivery. Attorney Dilag's multidisciplinary expertise and passion for innovation makes him a leading figure in the creative and legal tech industries. Let's welcome our distinguished panelists once again as they join us for an insightful discussion on the transformation impact of AI on society and the strategies needed to succeed in a post-AI world.
So thank you so much for that introduction. It's so nice to be once again on a stage where we can help people understand more about the conversations we have on AI. Actually, when we started having this conversation, people were asking, why AI again? Like some people are, just tired of us talking about AI. But something that has constantly piqued my interest, as well as the people around us, is not what we understand of AI, but actually how we explain AI to the people that we talk to. So let's try to change the way we do these kinds of fireside chats, no? And I'd like to ask every one of you, how do you explain this AI thing to the immediate communities or the people that you work with? Maybe we can start with Doc Ligot.
Yeah, apologies for my bedroom voice. Too many events. Yeah, so I think I still stick by the Waze analogy. Waze for me is the Waze app. No? One of the best uses of artificial intelligence. But I think nowadays people are more worried about automation and jobs. So I kind of add to Waze the self-driving car. I think that's what most of us will come face to face with AI, if not already. You're either using AI to guide you make decisions, or you're using AI to make the decisions for you. But then there's a downside, How many of you have gotten lost using Waze? You know why? It's because most people using Waze are motorcycles, driving motorcycles. So there's a lot of data pollution happening there. So that's the downside of using AI to guide your decisions. If the data isn't good, then the decisions won't be good. And then, of course, the self-driving car. I think Tesla just opened their first official shop, a couple of weeks ago. And we all know that Teslas have been known to hit stuff. Like there was a Tesla that famously ran over a deer a couple of days ago, didn't stop. So that's also a data problem. You may have all the automation, you may have all of the technology, but if the underlying data is not good, then we're at the mercy of that. So I think those are the two. I think most of the AI use cases we will have to discuss will either be more like Waze or more like Teslas, but at the end of the day, it's all about the data.
Thanks, Doc. How about you, Gina?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So we, just for context, at Connected Women, we enroll women from the grassroots communities into AI jobs. So we help them prepare the data that's actually used to train AI models. So, but these ladies, they don't join our programs because they want to become AI specialists. Actually, they join our programs because they need to earn an income a lot of the time. So we actually help them learn by doing, which I think is the best way to learn AI, right? So they prepare the data, and then the data is then used by the AI model, whoever's training the model, to train it, and then they understand the outcomes. And so quite naturally, they put it together and they understand exactly how the AI works, which I think is probably an advantage that they have over a lot of CEOs who say that we're talking too much about AI.
Right. And it's very interesting because these women didn't really understand it, but they just needed a space where they can earn, right? And it might have been a challenge really to start talking about this thing called AI in the beginning.
But of course, now they're experts, right? Because they start out with like very basic data annotation. And then we started doing this in 2020. So everyone thought we were crazy, right? Like we're going to train women from the grassroots, including fish